Before we continue with the analysis, I want to talk to you guys about JerseyFIFA.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that's the latest home shirts, the latest away shirts, tracksuits, or even retro kits, Jersey FIFA has a bit of everything. There really is something for everyone, so if you are interested, then make sure to use the link in the description down below and head to JerseyFIFA.com. Wow, 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 wow. So those fellas over at Manchester City, you know, the team that have won the league countless times in the past few years, they've won pretty much every trophy there is. Turns out they're pretty good at football, and my days did they show it in this game against Arsenal, one of the best teams in Europe at the moment. Genuinely, Arsenal, very, very good side. Manchester City just made them look bang average, and it is all because of the genius of some of these players, the pure quality that some of these players have got, but also the fact that they are led by one of the greatest managers that the world will ever see. This Manchester City team is really special. They've been good for a lot of years now, but there's something different about this team. They feel more complete. They feel better than they've ever looked before. And it's really quite terrifying, because what they have now, which they perhaps didn't have in the past, is the ability to change tactics and completely throw a team off. So let's look at the lineup, right? We've got Arsenal exactly how we expected them to set up. We've got the City team here, with Kyle Walker coming in for the injured Aki, meaning Akanji goes to left back. Now, the way that we all thought that Manchester City were going to set up in possession was with the back three, like this. We have Diaz in the middle, Walker to his right, Akanji to his left, and then we've got Rodri and Stones kind of playing as a double pivot. We all expected to see this, and Arsenal were included in that. You know, it allows Saka to push up on Akanji, Martinelli on Walker, Jesus in here, we've got Xhaka on Stones, Odegaard and Rodri. Arsenal were ready for this game. They were ready for Manchester City to be in this shape. It never happened. We never saw City's famous 3-box-3. They didn't do it. And Pep Guardiola just completely flipped this game on his head with a change of approach, which we just didn't see coming. And that was a change to a 4-4-2. With Akanji, like I said, actually playing as a traditional left-back, Walker as a right-back, Diaz and Stones actually as centre-backs, and then we had Rodri and Gundogan as a double pivot in midfield, Grealish and Bernardo Silva on the wings, and then Haaland and De Bruyne as the front two, with De Bruyne obviously just off of Haaland. They're too good. They're too good. Now, this change from Guardiola, I think it just completely caught Arteta out, and completely caught out these Arsenal players. We could see, like I've said already there, that Arsenal were ready to kind of press Manchester City in a certain shape. They were ready for that shape. But when that shape then doesn't happen, it makes it really difficult to actually play against them and figure out how to press them, because there's now the extra player in there. And at this level, all it takes is that little bit of uncertainty, those few seconds where you're like, wait, is that my man or is that your man, mate? Like, it's just that few seconds is all top level players need. And that was the problem that Arsenal had throughout the first half, really. They just couldn't really get to grips with this change of system which City were playing. Of course, on top of this, it isn't just a system thing. It's also about how you play on the ball. And City, as you know, this part we did expect, were absolutely phenomenal. And I really enjoyed the way that they approached this game. It was, dare we say it, De Zerbi at Brighton-esque. Because this was all about Manchester City trying to bait Arsenal into pressing them. We'll come on to one of the goals in a second. But this is Manchester City trying to say to Arsenal, come on, come and press us. You want to come press us. And then Arsenal like, yeah, you know what, we do want to come press you. City just go through them. And it was unfair, really. So let's take a look at how it works. Let's say, for example, Ederson goes this way to John Stones. Jesus is going to come across to John Stones. Now, we can see the wingers are kind of man-to-man with the fullbacks. And the midfield, initially, is kind of man-to-man. Even if De Bruyne drops deep, Thomas Partey can follow him. We've got a man-for-man set up here. So let's say Jesus is going to press Stones. The free pass, quite clearly, is the other centre-back. So Stones goes across to Diaz. Now, what does Diaz do here? This is where it's interesting. Now, what we might expect a lot of possession-dominant teams to do, you know, those teams which want to break someone down, the centre-back would have a really aggressive first touch here and step into this area and look to try and play forward. Diaz done the complete opposite of this. He just stood perfectly still. He just stood there, puts his foot on the ball and waits. And it's a psychological game as much as anything. Someone said it. I done a video on Brighton tactics a few months ago, and someone made a really good comment, how it's as much of a psychological thing. If you're Arsenal and you are standing there, and you can see that the centre-back is standing in front of you, literally just with his foot on the ball, you feel you have to go press him. And this is what City done so brilliantly all game. They invited that pressure from Arsenal. So Odegaard comes out into this area, which now means that you've got the spare man in midfield is Gundogan, which means Thomas Partey has to come higher onto Gundogan. But now there's a big old problem. A big problem. Because a certain Kevin De Bruyne, you know, one of the best players in the world, is the free man on the football pitch. That's a problem for Arsenal. And I thought City from this area were just brilliant. Now, again, kind of a De Zerbi-esque approach which we've seen is the staggering of the midfield. We'd see Rodri a little bit deeper at times, Gundogan just a couple of yards higher, and the aim of this is to kind of break the structure of the Arsenal midfield. Because, for example, Odegaard can press Diaz here, and he can kind of use this shadow press behind him to make sure that Gundogan isn't an option, so he can apply pressure to Diaz but also cover Gundogan behind him. The problem, though, is that Diaz can go into Rodri here, then into Gundogan, and then round to De Bruyne. And, that's fair enough to say that on paper. Manchester City have the quality to back it up. With Rodri and Gundogan, they were just absolutely brilliant on the ball in this game, and this staggered approach allows them to play through the Arsenal midfield, and like I said, De Bruyne is then your spare man. If De Bruyne is your spare man, with Haaland running in front of you, you've got Jack Grealish to the left-hand side, Bernardo Silva to the right-hand side, that's a big problem for Arsenal, because it's just too good. It's too good, you can't deal with it. But actually, perhaps what might be even scarier about this from City was that the short passing wasn't their biggest weapon. The biggest weapon for Manchester City in this game was the long ball. Pep Guardiola side playing 4-4-2 long ball. Never thought we'd see the day, but we did, and boy oh boy did it work. And again it comes because of this mismatch, and it comes because of standing on the ball and baiting the press. So, like I said, Diaz is going to stand here on the ball, it's going to bait Odegaard out, and it means Thomas Partey is going to come higher onto Gundogan. Now, yes, De Bruyne is the free man here, but he's not needed right now. Granted, yes, we've got those passing moves through the pitch where he's used, but not always. What we could also see was a long ball lumped up to the big man Erling Haaland up front. And Haaland against Holding, I'm not going to give away any prizes for guessing who wins this battle. It's Haaland all day long. Haaland's first touch in this game was phenomenal. This was a Haaland performance unlike any Haaland performance I've ever seen. It's the most complete I've ever seen him. I love Haaland. If he does this more, wowzers. But now this is where De Bruyne comes into it. Because again, De Bruyne is the free man. So he can either make the run past Haaland in behind the defence and get the ball as we saw for one of the goals. Again, we'll come on to it. Or again, he can be the spare man, get on the second ball in his pocket and then play forward. It was just lethal. And Arsenal just didn't have the answer to this problem. Haaland and De Bruyne were too good. Too good. You could not get close to them in this game. And if these two are going to develop an understanding where at times De Bruyne is dropping into the pocket and Haaland's going in behind, De Bruyne's always going to find him. But if you've also got the other way around, where Haaland's dropping deep and becoming a creative player, like we saw in this game, that is terrifying. If that happens, the rest of the league might as well just sack it off, pack it in and go home. Because there's only going to be one winner in the league. Because it's so good. It gives them a completely different weapon which they haven't had in the past. They've always been a brilliant side in possession at passing through the pitch. Really very good. But to also have this transitional approach as well, it's just phenomenal. And it's terrifying, and it's exactly what we saw for the first goal, and that set the tone for the entire match. Let's actually just take a look at that first goal here real quick, because it just destroys Arsenal. Now what we can see is that Arsenal have kind of fallen for the bait. All these players are pressing really high up the pitch. Oh, I marked the wrong player there, but you get the idea. All these Arsenal players are pressing super high up the pitch, trying to apply pressure to the ball to stop Manchester City playing out. If you stop Manchester City playing out, you stop Manchester City, right? That's how it used to be. But it isn't the case anymore, because what John Stones now has in his locker, with Erling Haaland playing up front, is the ability to just ping a ball long. And that's exactly what we see for this goal. If we let it play out, John Stones is going to take the ball, and he just sends it long. He absolutely smashes it. Now, next problem here is going to be Thomas Partey in the middle of the pitch. So we've got Erling Haaland going up for the ball here. 1 second. We've got Erling Haaland going up for the ball here, up against Rob Holding. We've already said it's a bit of a mismatch. But the other problem for me is Thomas Partey in this area. He's just not paying attention enough, and De Bruyne is just going to drift off the back of him into this area. Haaland, watch him to be fair, does brilliantly in the kind of individual duel. He had the beating of Holding all game long, but for me, De Bruyne drifts off the back of Partey a bit too easily. Great touch by Haaland, but now look at De Bruyne. De Bruyne is now the wrong side of Partey, and he's just going to break into this space. And it's really simple. This has come from one long ball from the back. It's brilliant from Haaland, and De Bruyne just runs the rest of the way. Now, defensively, I think Gabriel gets his body positioning wrong, and you can maybe question being beaten at your near post from that range. But what is like the biggest thing for me, it's just how simple it is. This is an evolution of Pep Guardiola. We're talking about maybe the best tactician we've ever seen. He's evolving. His Manchester City team is evolving. And it's because I've got players which now also thrive in transitions as well as sustained possession. This Manchester City team, it's too good. It is too good. The play we saw in this game was absolutely phenomenal. And like I said, it just completely caught Arteta off guard. He just didn't have the answers to it. Now, of course, the main theme in this game was how good Manchester City were on the ball, whether it was short passing or long passing. That was the main theme, because at the end of the day, they scored 4 goals. But I also thought defensively they were very good as well. But I also think Arsenal just were poor on the day. I think the inexperience in the squad really showed. There wasn't that composure, there wasn't that leader on the pitch to slow things down, and they struggled. But again, some of it is because of Manchester City's good shape. So Arsenal want to build in a back 3. We know that. We've got Ben White at the right here, Holding, Gabriel, and Zinchenko is going to move into midfield. Manchester City are going to press in a 4-4-2 with Haaland and De Bruyne up here. We've got Grealish kind of ready to go towards White if he needs to. We've got Bernardo Silva is going to follow Zinchenko, so whether he comes in here, Bernardo will follow him, or if he goes wide, again, Bernardo will follow him. But what Manchester City are doing, essentially, is cutting off the double pivot. Rodri was being much more aggressive than what we'd expect in this game, and it allowed them to cut off these Arsenal players. However, I think that if Arsenal showed a bit more quality, a bit more composure on the ball, again, they did kind of have the spare man in this area in Odegaard. I think Haaland and De Bruyne, they weren't applying the most aggressive pressure you'll ever see, so I think there was the opportunity to work this ball into midfield. They just didn't do it. Now, some of the reason for that, and kind of the difference between the two sides, is that Arsenal don't have that Erling Haaland, which you can lump the ball up to, get on the second ball, you know, exactly what De Bruyne was doing, then you're in good situations. Arsenal don't have the ability to do that, and this is why City are just the better team. But also, the players were just poor individually. So, as good as City were tactically, and how good they were on the ball, and how they really switched things up and caught Arsenal off guard, the Arsenal players were not right in this game. You know, panicked on the ball, going far too direct. The amount of long balls we saw out towards Saka on this side, Akanji versus Saka in the air, who's going to win? I wonder. It was too easy. And it was really disappointing from Arsenal. I was really looking forward to a big clash of the Titans. Title decider. Two teams going head to head, going at it, scrapping it out to try and win the Premier League title. Manchester City was too easy. Now, do I think the title is done? Not by any means. This is the Premier League. City just have to lose or drop points a couple of times. Arsenal win all their games. Arsenal will win the title. And both teams, you know, are capable of that. Both teams are capable of winning all their games till the end of the season. We just don't know. But Manchester City, for me, were absolutely brilliant. But Arsenal, they just didn't show up. And the problem for Arsenal, and the problem for Arteta, is they've now gone 4 games in a row of just not showing up. And we don't see many Premier League champions pick up 3 points from a possible 12. And they're stumbling. This Arsenal team is stumbling. They look tired, which is weird because they're not competing in any other competitions. They went out of all of them quite early. They're struggling. I think it's the mental aspect rather than physically fatigued. I think it's, the inexperience in the squad. Not many of these players are winners. You know, Zinchenko and Jesus have won titles, but even then, not as the most important players in the team. What as Ramsdale, Ben White, Holding, Gabriel, Xhaka, they haven't been there and done it and won the Premier League. Looking at this Manchester City team last night, this was a team that have been there and done it before. And who knows, they might now go do it again. If they keep performing like this till the end of the season, then they will do it again. Because Pep Guardiola has this knack of starting his pre-season later than what everyone else does, with the idea that we're not going to start the season quite as fast as everyone else, but come April, we are going to be in the best shape to win this Premier League title. He does it every single season, and this year, it is really, really showing. De Bruyne is coming into his element right as they need him to, and I wouldn't want to be the team to try and stop them. But someone's going to have to. If not, Manchester City will win the Premier League once again. I'm sure a lot of you will want that, because you're probably City fans watching this. If you are a City fan, let me know what you think. Who was your best player on the night? De Bruyne or Haaland? Haaland, that was very, very good, but De Bruyne with the contributions probably just about edges it, but I thought everyone was absolutely brilliant. Pep Guardiola, phenomenal with his tactics. Arteta, caught off guard really. He just didn't expect this performance, this tactical approach from Manchester City. So things to learn for him. But for now, Manchester City take, for me, that kind of grip in the title race. They're nowhere near the title yet. It's not close to being done. But they took that step forward of, okay, we're now going to be the front runners. Good luck catching them. Good luck catching them. But that's all for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you could subscribe before you go, like the video, notifications on, that would be great as well. Apart from that, thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I will see you in the next one.